All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Brent Mosier, Head of Demand Marketing here at OpsumX. Today we are presenting 5 ways to drive efficiency across your software delivery. I'm joined today by my colleague Vishal Patel. Patel has over 21 years of experience in digital transformation, enterprise DevOps, CI/CD, and product as a service, product development and delivery. He has set up DevOps practices and architectures and implemented end-to-end SDLC automations for many large enterprises across the globe. Just a little more housekeeping before we start the webinar. If you have any questions during this presentation, I encourage you to ask them at any time in the chat box or in the QA panel. I see a few of you, welcome from Florida and Michigan. Enjoy. Hopefully the weather's better than it is for me. It's 19 where I'm living, so hopefully it's warm. You know, we're happy to address any questions you have at the end of the webinar. Here at OpsumX, actually, Vishal, you want to pop the slide over real quick?
Yeah.
Here at OpsumX, our vision is to enable all enterprises to deliver software without human intervention. We believe to help organizations modernize business applications, they need to focus on the adoption of cloud-native architecture, modernize continuous delivery, and automate infrastructures. In today's webinar, Vishal will introduce you to our Intelligent Software Delivery Platform, or ISD. This comes with 2 modules, which is Continuous Delivery Module, which allows you to have real-time insights, automate workflows, and automate multi-cloud deployments. Our Delivery Intelligence Module helps you approve and collaborate. It automates policies and governance and secures intelligence automation and also helps with continuous verifications. Before we get into the webinar, I want to launch a little poll here for everybody. So Vishal, do you mind jumping to the next slide? And I'm going to launch the poll here. So here's the poll for everybody. We'll leave it up for just a few minutes so people can answer. Feel free to click away. It's good for us to understand, you know, what our audience is really doing. And it also helps Vishal tailor some of the questions and answers as we go through this. So thank you everybody for going through the polls. We'll be finishing this up in just a second. All right, one more minute and we will move on to the heart of this, and you could stop listening to the crazy marketing guy and actually listen to Vishal. So, all right, I'm going to give it one more minute and then we're going to cancel the poll. So, all right, thank you, everyone. So with that, you know, Vishal, why don't you take over and everybody enjoy the presentation.
Sure. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I believe all the participants are from US. So I'm wishing good morning. If there is someone from the Far East, then good evening, good night. I'm Vishal. As Brent, my colleague, has already introduced me. So without wasting any more time, on this particular topic, let's directly jump on to the main agenda. So basically, these are some of the changing trends in the IT industry that we have seen. There is a lot of increase in the adoption towards the cloud technologies and microservices based architecture. So gone are the days, when we used to have monolith applications. Now everyone is going for microservice based architectures. Everyone is adopting to the cloud technologies. And what are the other factors that are affecting this adoption, right? Thanks to the COVID, it has changed the way we are working. Everyone is, every other company is going for remote workforce. Some of the companies you might have heard recently, they are planning to go for permanent remote workforce kind of model. There is actually a heavy demand of, this kind of distributed work environment, distributed work culture, right? And this is one very big factor that's affecting, the adoption. The second parameter would be, I would say, changing consumer demand. This is an ever-changing field. And off late, this has changed a lot with the introduction of the cloud services, the microservices. Of course, one of the other factor is competition. This is at its peak, I would say, right now, based on my experience, based on the way the industry is trending these days. And though there is all of these factors that are refactoring into the adoption, but one very important thing that's, the number one priority would be, how your adoption will reduce the cost of delivery, right? How your organization will be able to build the capability around scale and speed. So how will you able to deliver your software services at scale with velocity, right? That meets the demand, and also trash to refactory, all the other parameters that we talked about. Software delivery, how can we go about, when we talk of scale and speed, right? So what this process actually looks like, so here I was trying to depict it with a very simple graph here. So it all starts with typical SDLC, right? You do the code commit, then you have your build process, your SCAs. What I mean by SCAs is static code analysis. Then you typically go through your integration tests, your staging, your updating your canary, and rolling it out into the canary first before it actually goes to the production. And there you will have some caveats on the rollback as well, right? So this typically is about the regular process that we follow, especially with the cloud consumption that's heavily increasing these days. What actually here we need to really think of is what are the risks basically when we are trying to follow this model, right? One is gatekeeping, right? Every stage, we need to do some kind of, or rather we need to implement some kind of gating process, right? So that we can reduce some time in typically if the gating is done by manually, it takes some amount of time. How can we reduce that, right? So earlier, if it used to be manual gating process, then probably it used to be like 2 to 3 hours people used to take, but now we can automate it, right? Likewise, if there is inconsistent policy and security risks associated with the delivery, what can we do to reduce that? There are manual activities involved, right? In the risk verification, the diagnostics and all. And here I was trying to even depict, what typically is the time it takes usually, if we perform these things manually. But if we automate it, then what is the total hours of effort gain that we are achieving with this, right? So automating these typical risks that are involved in the manual process is the key here, right? And this is the only way we can even roll it, get to the velocity. This is the only way we can achieve the velocity as well, by automating all of these gating mechanisms and verifications and checks and balances throughout your delivery pipeline, right? So in a nutshell, what I was trying to depict here, right? We have a typical pipeline based delivery mechanism where a lot of these activities will be manual, but these are the biggest risks, these are the biggest hindrances to achieve velocity. And what we can do is by automating these gatekeeping activity, by automating the different security risk checks, or by automating your risk verification capability and so on. So everywhere we want to do automation, we want to do things smartly. Only then we can achieve velocity. So the more we are reducing the risk, the higher velocity we gain, right? Let me move on. Well, this is one thing which I think most of you might already be aware of, right? What is this inefficient delivery process? So what are the different parameters that comes out of this inefficient delivery process usually, right? We talk about developer burnout. Developer ends up getting involved in multiple different activities. Even in typical engineering teams, developers are the most bogged up guys. They're actually burning out, right? There will be a huge amount of technical debt that keeps arising on your software, on your delivery, right? Because over and over about a period of time, what happens is you are releasing product, but the quality issues, the bugs, the defects, and all of them, they keep arising, and this all counts to your technical debt, right? So though the product is out, but still the technical debt is increasing over a period of time. Quality of the product is one biggest factor that is at stake, right? The software releases are risky. What is the risk here? The biggest risk here is the predictability, right? These software releases that we are making, right, they're not predictable. how sure we are that the software is really going to get deployed in the way we wanted to, the way we anticipated, without any issues. And even after the deployment, what is the guarantee that the software is definitely going to work the way we anticipated? This is a big risk, right? And if we do manually, then that's the biggest challenge there, right? Production failures. We have seen lots and lots of these issues, where production deployments are getting failed, right? One at the deployment time it's failed, one at the functional time during the runtime it fails because of some issue. There could be environmental issue, there could be configuration issue, there could be application issues, and so on. There are so many issues that lead to production failure. How can we contain them? How can we ensure that these issues, different categories of issues, we reduce every day and we improve upon the quality of the deployments that we are making, and ultimately increasing the quality of the product, right? Now, next parameter I would talk of is about longer time to resolve errors, right? This is one thing. What is the turnaround time? It's okay. We got an error, we got an issue, we had a production failure, but how quickly we can turn it around? What is our ability? This is the problem. And it all boils down to how quickly you can identify what the root cause of the issue was. How can you get to the bottom of the issue and figure out that, hey, this is what is the problem. This was the configuration issue, right? Let's go and fix it. Finding the root cause of the issue itself is the most time consuming thing, right? And if you have something that can aid you in fastening this process of doing the root cause, identifying where the issue was, right, then nothing like it, right? That will be the savior. We have this common practice of because of all these different parameters, right? We talked about risky software releases, we talked about production failures, we talked about longer RCAs, right, and fixing them, the larger turnaround times, right? This all leads to of course not just developer burnout, but also you'll have a bunch of frustrated SREs. they'll be they'll be frustrated, right? Because their job is getting more and more difficult with every single release that we are making, right? The next one is slower time to market. So we are ultimately reducing our capability as an organization to market the product. So what is the time it takes to go to market? That particular capability, that particular measure is not up to the mark. It is all affecting our capability of an organization, how quickly we can go to the market with quality, with lesser issues, and even for the issues that we have, it should be the least turnaround time and bring back the business to normalcy, right? And ultimately, the biggest bottom line here is all of these factors somewhere directly, indirectly, it leads to unhappy customers. End of the day, we are in business, we do business, and we do have a lot of customers. We want to make them happy, we want our customers to be successful using our software products, but because of all the different parameters we discussed, this all leads to unhappy customers, right? Let me move on. And what is the solution that I'm proposing? We already discussed the problem statement. We already thought that, hey, automating this, making it in a smart way, automating your pipelines, automating the way, you are approving releases, you are managing your, gatekeeping activities, or the way you are managing your risk verification, right? Or production issues. So we know, we discussed about the problems, we know what could be problem solution, but this is the actual solution. So at OpsMX here, I wanted to talk about intelligent software delivery platform. This is the product that we built at OpsMX, and this is a platform which is all about delivering your software without human intervention. So that's the target that we are working on, right? And this is the world's first ML-powered continuous delivery and verification platform. And this software, this platform does all these smart activities for you, right? How it is doing? What are the capabilities? Let's go through that. So do you want me, Brent, to take a pause here for any questions, or we want to reserve the Q&A at the end?
I think we're good right now. We have a couple of questions, but we're on a good path. So why don't we just jump into showing them all the awesomeness of our ISD platform, and we can kind of go from there.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you. So yeah, let's move on. So what is this ISD? So ISD is basically, as I mentioned, it's the Intelligent Software Delivery Platform, a product from OpsMX. And ISD has two different modules, right? Two modules. One is the orchestration module, and one is the actual data and intelligence module that does all the smart activities for you, all the intelligent activities for you, right? Now, on the orchestration module, which is the underlying base module or the foundation module, is OpsMX Enterprise Spinnaker, right? So Spinnaker, if you know, it's an open source tool, but we at OpsMX, we have taken that open source Spinnaker, we have added, a lot of intelligence into that Spinnaker. We have added quite a bunch of features and capabilities into that Spinnaker, and that Spinnaker is, at your service. So OpsMX Enterprise Spinnaker is the actual orchestration module. What it does, it has a lot of capabilities, right? It allows you to handle your activities, your releases in the GitOps way. It provides you the enterprise security. It is very easy to operate, right? Because if any one of you have already, some kind of awareness, some kind of expertise on using Spinnaker, then using OpsMX Enterprise for Spinnaker is, a kid's play, right? And the most important, it is a self-service tool. Very easy to use, very easy to navigate and use that, right? On the OpsMX Autopilot, which is the actual data and intelligence module. Now, this is one piece, I wanted to spend some time and, throw a little more weightage onto this. The main four features, as you can see, on the slide, it does, automated verification. It has continuous governance and security, automated approvals, observability, and all of that, right? Let me start, one by one. So let's start with the automated approvals. So we were talking about the gatekeeping activity, right? In any enterprise scale application where you have pipelines that, or let me say, where you have production pipelines, right? A production pipeline here means, you have a pipeline that takes the code right from commit to the production, right? So whatever the path the code traverses from commit till production, right? It's a big thing, because at an enterprise application, code getting into the production is a big thing. And at every stage of that pipeline, we want to have some kind of automated checks and balances to be in place so that there is no manual intervention, right? So the OpsMX Enterprise ISD application, this autopilot module, takes care of those automated approvals, automated gatekeeping, right? We have some kind of automated verification mechanism, right? So what it does, we have a lot of integrators. Autopilot can talk to all the different tools and integrations of your platform. Look at it like this. A CI/CD platform is not just one single tool. It's a bunch of different tools that work cohesively, coherently with each other, right? You might be using Jenkins, or you might be using Spinnaker, right, as a CD tool. You might be using, some other tool for builds, some other tool for static code analysis. You might be using some other tool for building your infrastructure. You might be using some other tool for performing your QA automation, right? So ultimately, CI/CD platform is actually not just one single tool. It's an ecosystem of different tools, and all these tools in the ecosystem, they have a lot of data. End of the day, this is the data that you need to take, to perform some kind of decision making. Because even if you do this manually, right? Imagine, if the CI/CD platform, there is manual verification happening, manual gatekeeping happening. So what happens? Those people, those members of the team who are responsible for verifying the data and then approving, they will also rely on the data coming from this tool, right? So we have automated that entire thing. Autopilot fetches the data, it aggregates all the data from different tools in the ecosystem, and it does some intelligence on top of it, right? And that is how it will automate your it will make your verification process, it will make your the automated verification process much more smarter, right? We have integrated autopilot with a lot of policies, right? That help you govern your delivery process, that help you integrate your delivery process with the security policies of your organization, right? And integrating this piece into autopilot actually enhances the governance feature of this particular tool. What it means basically, all those different policies that you need to check to ensure that all these security and compliance related features are met before you even release the software will all be taken care by this particular module, governance and security, right? Automated approvals. So not just doing the gatekeeping, but also having some kind of approval mechanism is in place for this tool, so that you can have all these stages set with this gating mechanism, where respective individuals of your organization based on their hierarchy will be involved in the automated approval process. So they will keep approving the progression of the pipeline from one stage to the other based on some kind of verification, right? And they'll be approving it. The next one, autopilot is a very feature rich tool for analytics, for dashboard, right? So you can see a bunch of reports coming out from this tool that can be used um, as an input for enhancing your CD process optimization, CD process, enhancements, efficiency, right? So all of this data, all these different reports that are coming out from the tool are actually, of lot of value. It helps you get proper insights into your delivery process. It helps you get proper data on what is the maturity at which um, you're able to deliver software at speed with the reduced risks, right? So you can get data on the applications, specific items. You can get data on the the pipelines that you have for that application, or for the number of times the application is getting deployed on a particular environment, number of people who has to approve that particular, how compliant that particular deployment was, if I have to compare it with the policies, right, from the governance perspective. So all of those different kinds of reports you can aggregate using this particular feature of autopilot. So in short, this is a very feature rich, intelligent platform that enhances your organization's capability to deliver software faster with the lowest risks. This is an interesting slide. This particular point, I deliberately, stopped myself from talking about in the previous slide, because here I wanted to highlight something. We have talked about so many different features of ISD, both OES, Opsimex Enterprise for Spinnaker, and Autopilot, right? This one particular thing is something really different and unique. As I mentioned, CI/CD platform is actually an ecosystem of different tools, right? Now, one very basic question that comes to the mind, is Opsimex capable of integrating with all of these different tools? The answer is yes. Autopilot works, ISD works with GitHub, Jenkins, Docker Hub, and it can do multi-cloud deployments, right? Because the underlying Spinnaker supports all of these things, right? So we are actually building on top of Spinnaker, exploiting all those different features and enhancing those features. Typically, the way ISD works is, it has a very nice feature-rich user experience, a web UI. So you can use your, desktops or laptops, and a developer will log in. It can talk to GitHub. It can talk to Jenkins. So it has version controlling capabilities. It can talk to different tools like Docker Hub, and it can help you perform deployments on different clouds. It can also help you manage your pipelines. A typical pipeline that performs deployments into the non-production environment, then performs canary, then performs some kind of analysis, and finally it goes to the production. So all of these different activities you can perform using ISD. Let's move on. Okay, um, this actually brings us to one of the very unique features of Opsimics ISD, right? As I mentioned, in the previous slide, this particular software has a web interface. It has a very rich user experience, and from your laptop, desktop, you can use your browser, log into this tool, and you can start using it, right? One feature that has definitive edge on Opsimics is, Opsimics ISD is about the ability to make your Opsimics ISD work both inside and outside of the organization firewall. In short, we have two different flavors of the product. One is the on-prem, so that you can take your ISD application, install it within your firewall, and you can use that. The other one is the SaaS offering. So we do have a SaaS offering for this product. And the way this SaaS offering works is like, we have a concept of an agent. So Opsimics ISD deploys an agent, and that agent is used for performing all the different activities for Opsimics, where Opsimics ISD is actually sitting outside of firewall, right? So typically, the way it works in the on-prem, version. So you install the Opsimics ISD platform within the organization's firewall, and it does everything for you. But on the SaaS offering, the agent does everything for you, and you don't really need to take the pains of maintaining, managing the ISD platform yourself, upgrading it by yourself. So everything will be taken care by the SaaS offering players, and you just need to use the product and build those capabilities for your organization. So I don't know if I'm running fast, but just want to do a quick time check. So Brent, are we on time or we are delayed?
We're good. If you want to jump into the demo, I think you did a great opportunity to explain how ISD works and all the features and functionalities of it. I think going in and showing will be really great, and then we can get into some of the questions that we have.
Excellent. Thank you. So yeah, I do have a short quick demo for you guys. I'm sure you might be enjoying the presentation so far, and I'm pretty confident you'll be even more excited once you actually see the demo, once we log into the product and we start demonstrating the product, right? So what you are going to see into this demo, just a quick heads up on that. So I'm going to show you what is this different dashboards that we have. What is the ease with which you can create applications, you can create pipelines, and you can add intelligent gates, right? Now all this automation that I was talking about, the automated verification, continuous verification, automated approval. So all those phases or all those stages, how easily we can add them into the pipelines, and how it all works. How are you going to add all these different policies that helps you in the governance and the security compliance of your organization? So I'm going to take you to most of these things in the demo. Okay, so I think we are all set for the demo. Let's go. So for the ease for this of this presentation, I've already logged in to this particular application in my browser, and the moment you log in, typically it uses. So quick thing, ISD supports different kinds of logging mechanisms, the different kinds of authorization and authentication tools that your organization has. So ISD gets seamlessly integrated with all of them. Right now we have LDAP and SAML, which is integrated, and we plan to integrate this with a lot of other different authentication and authorization tools. So currently, for this demo purposes, I have used a backend LDAP server to authenticate the users. Right. So the moment you log in using your user ID and password, so this is the very first screen that you see. And this is the application dashboard, right? Now, application dashboard gives a very high level overview of the total number of applications that we have in this particular instance and the total number of deployments that were made, right? What are the pending approvals? Remember, I was talking to you, I was telling you that we have automated approval mechanism. So how many such approvals were done? How many of them are pending? How many policy violations happened? This is one very interesting thing. I was talking about compliance and security, governance and security compliance. So they are all about the policy failures or policy violations, right? So this is something which might be the most interesting thing. If a manager or an SRE or a release manager, right? So the moment they log in, the very first thing they would love to say is, great. I mean, you say you have executed X number of pipelines. You have deployed X number of applications. That's great. Things are moving, but show me what is failing. Where are we having issues, right? And this is where we try to highlight the number of policy violations that took place and the number of verification failures that happened, right? So this is one very interesting thing about the application dashboard. The next thing is all these at the bottom, you start looking for your specific applications, right? So let me search for some particular application which has some pipelines and some policy, some stages and so on. Okay. So here you see, you get into a lot of such applications. And once you click into those applications, then you can see the typical pipeline that application has, right? So if services is the name of the application, it has one pipeline, which is service something, right? So this is one pipeline it has. Let's move on. It gives all the different kinds of insights. I was talking about the different kinds of insights as to, how many total pipelines we had, what are the most active pipelines, what are the most successful pipelines, right? Let me just zoom in a bit so that you can see this pretty easy. So most active pipelines, how many, what are the most successful pipelines? You have a nice filter. You can filter it based on the number of days, so on, right? Most failed pipelines, right? Which are the slowest pipelines and fastest pipelines, right? So we are talking about speed, and if we don't know, right, which pipelines are going at par, which are the fastest and which are the slowest pipelines, it actually makes a big difference in your capability as an organization to deliver software faster, right? So we have all those insights. Let me jump into the very beginning or the starting of this activity, right? So once you log in, of course, you see the dashboard, but one most interesting thing that you see here is, the setup part. This typically allows a user to create applications, integrations, cloud provider accounts, and agents. Some of these things may be relevant only for administrators, because say for example creating agents, developer may not be doing that agent creation business by himself. So typically agents creation, managing of agents is done by the administrator. But again, what is that a developer will do mostly on a day-to-day basis? So basically he might be interested in creating applications, right? The actual applications that needs to be deployed, which has a set of services that will be deployed into production, right? So a developer might be interested in creating the applications and then creating pipelines for those applications, right? So creating application is a very simple business. You create your application name, you provide some application description, and you give some sample email ID, and that's it. You're done. Right? So creating an application is as simple as this. Once you create the application, then you just start adding your pipelines. I'm just creating some dummy pipeline here for the demo purpose. So I started creating a pipeline, and once you have these pipelines available, okay, then you add a new gate. What is a gate here? This is one new thing that I wanted to introduce you all to. I was talking to you about continuous verification, an activity where we aggregate data from different tools in the CI/CD ecosystem and use that data for taking some intelligent decisions, right? I would typically call a verification activity. We are automating that using this product. And that is what is a gate I'm referring to. I also talked to you about automated approvals, an activity where we are automating the gatekeeping activity, right? We are automating, the process where someone has to manually come and trigger the execution of the pipeline to move ahead. Even that is being automated, right? So typically, this is what is a gate for me. When I want to add a new gate, you know, um, the very first thing that that I need to configure. So remember, this is the pipeline I created, and to this pipeline, I want to add a gate, and this is the gate configuration. These are the typical different kinds of gates that we have currently in our product. One is an approval gate, one is a verification gate, one is a test verification, again, a different kind of verification, typically which focuses on the test data, right? And then the policy gate. I was also explaining you a little while ago as to what a policy is. Typical check about the compliance and the governance and the compliance, security compliance aspects of it. So even that policy gate can be added here. So if I want to add an approval gate, I just select that. I'll give a gate name, and then I typically associate this gate with an environment, and I identify what are the different connectors, what accounts, who are the people who will approve these gates. I configure that gate, I save it, and that gate gets attached to this pipeline, right? Likewise, let's move on. What is this integrator? Integrator is nothing but the data source, right? Again, I go back to the same statement I made some time back. CI/CD platform is not just one single tool, it's a bunch, it's an ecosystem of different tools that work in coherence with each other, right? Say, for example, you have Jenkins, you have Bamboo CI, you have Bitbucket, you have Jira, you have Slack, you have Prometheus, right? You might be using Selenium, right? You might be using GitLab, right? So there might be a lot of these tools. You might be using SonarQube. So a lot of these tools that all work together in conjunction, in coherence, and they work together. They make this CI/CD platform functional, right? So and these are the tools that are actually that has a lot of data that is required for analysis, for taking decisions, right? Smart decisions, intelligent decisions, and these tools for me act as data sources, nothing but integrations. So if I want to add, these are the different data sources that we have integration available with, right? Just let me walk you through that list of all the different data sources that we have integrated with. So you can connect with ISD for artifact related stuff, Artifactory, Bitbucket, Docker Hub, GitHub, etc. We have integrated ISD with Bamboo CI, Jenkins. From the governance perspective, we have Jira, ServiceNow, right? The monitoring tools, we have Datadog, CloudWatch, AppDynamics, Elasticsearch, right? Prometheus, Splunk, etc. Right? From the notifications perspective, these days, we are working in a very collaborative environment, right? The teams, they love to work in a very collaborative way. So all these notifications, they come into picture. So we have integrated this ISD tool with Slack and Microsoft Teams as well. OPA is one thing, OPA is Open Policy Agent, and this is an open source policy agent tool that is used for automating your policies. A policy is nothing but a condition, a particular governance and security condition that you want to check during the execution of your policy. That can be automated using these different policies that we have, right? A bunch of other SAST and DAS tools that we have, Aquawave, HCL AppScan, JFrog, etc. So these are all the different integrators that we have. What are these cloud provider accounts? Let me spend a few seconds here and explain you this. Basically, if you remember in one of the slides, I was saying, OpsMX ISD helps you deploy your applications into multiple different clouds. It could be Azure, it could be a typical Kubernetes cluster, it could be AWS, it could be Google, Google Cloud. So for the tool to be able to deploy onto the target environment, onto the target cloud, you need to have some accounts configured on them, right? Typically a deployment account, using this account, the tool will be able to perform the deployment onto the target cloud. And these accounts, right, are nothing but the cloud provider accounts that we have, right? So what are the different cloud providers on which our tool is capable of deploying your application to? So these are all the target cloud environments. So we support Kubernetes, deployment on a Kubernetes cluster. We support deployment on AWS, Azure, GCP, ECS for now, right? So these are all the different cloud provider, cloud services on which we support the deployment, right? So you can add any such cloud provider account you want from this list where you want your target deployments to work for, right? And again, it is a very simple thing. It's all about selecting the cloud provider or the target environment, the target cloud environment, associating that with the underlying Spinnaker, select the environment, right, on which you want to deploy, because your target cloud environment, cloud services, you might have configured multiple environments, right? It might be QA, it might be pre-prod, it might be prod environment, and so on, right? So and then provide the account name here, right? Just save it, you're done. Okay. Let me talk a little bit about policy. This is something very interesting. So ultimately, what is a policy? I was saying, the policy is a condition that we check at the runtime or during the pipeline execution. So what it means, let me throw one very simple example, so that we all understand. I don't really want to talk something, I don't want to really take a very technical, complex example, but very simple. During the holiday period, during the Christmas time, we all go on vacation, right? Maybe, from 20th December till say maybe 3rd or 4th Jan, right? And that's typically the holiday season where we really don't want to get troubled. What it means, if someone is performing the production deployment during that period, and if something goes wrong, then definitely you and I will get troubled. We will get called and we'll have to immediately jump onto the issues and fix it. What I would do, I would typically make a policy saying, hey guys, this is a moratorium period and we really don't want to make any such production deployments during this moratorium period. And that becomes a policy for me, right? So I can define all those policies here, right, using this policy feature. And this feature gives a list of all the different policies that we have. How many of them are static policies? How many of them are runtime policies, right? So all these different policies we have. Now, I can very easily go and create a new policy here. Very simple. Current feature of policy runs on OPA, which is Open Policy Agent tool. It's an open source tool, and this is the underlying agent that we use for automating the policy implementation. You can also use some other commercial tools available, but again, its usage is based on your organizational standard. So you can very easily define what is the name of the policy you want to give, and what is the OPA engine, what is the account, right? So on and so forth. And here as a sample, we have given this. So we don't want to typically make any deployments between say 25th December to 31st December. No deploys between 25th and 31st December. This is for the blackout period. That's it, right? A moratorium period, a holiday period, right? So I can very well, and you see, it is so simple to design these kind of policies. You just define this policy, save it, and then you can add this policy in the gate. You remember I was showing you when I created a new application, there we had a drop down where I can add a new gate, right? And the gate type was policy. So I can call this policy which I'm creating here into that particular pipeline. And when the pipeline gets executed, this gate will get activated, right? So it is as simple as that. On the security side, we have Audit Trial, right? So Audit Trial shows you, Audit Trial gives you a picture of typically the health of your deployments, basically, right? So how healthy your deployment or your CD process is, how many times the pipeline ran, of those number of times of runs, how many of them were successful, how many of them were failed, whether some of those pipeline runs were cancelled, and you can get into all of those details, right? So I click on one particular application and I want to know, oh, say for example, this one, it was a terminal thing, and there was some failure, and let me go and see what was the problem there. I click here and it shows me the deployment history. So it shows me what was the account used for executing this pipeline and what is the deployment history here. So it's very simple. It gives me all the data that can be audited, that can be used for the audit purposes. So it tells me which environment the deployment was, whether it was a default account, because here the account configured was default. So what account it used, what was the service or the pipeline it was trying to deploy, which image was getting deployed, what was the time, and it was initiated by which user, right? So this is typically used by the audit people within the organization to trace the health of your deployments. Everything is successful, probably no one might even want to look at it. Only when things fail, when we want to trace it down as to what was the failure, what happened, when was the deployment done, who deployed it, what account was used, which image was getting deployed, and it gives you all the data. Trust me, this is one of the most beautiful feature that is that is a big hit, I would say. Many people like this feature, and we have been getting a lot of positive reviews about this particular feature, because this is one feature that gives you complete insight about your product, about your deployments, about the health of these deployments, and you can get to every detail you want, right? Yeah, so this is about it. I think we covered most of it. One last thing I wanted to cover is about verification. I was telling you, you have so many different data sources, and you get data aggregated from all these different sources, and you analyze that data to take some kind of intelligent decision, informed decision, rather, I would say, because these decisions needs to be very calculated, and they needs to be very subjective, right? It needs to be data driven, right? So I would say, this is one feature where we try to automate the decision making capability of the people who are actually running the software delivery activities within the organization, right? So let's take, say for example, this particular pipeline. It was failed, right? And let's find out why it failed. So when I click on this particular thing, so initially, the dashboard shows total number of verifications and how many of them were successful, and all that very high level information. When I get to the bottom of it, then I get to know, okay, this particular thing was failed in for this particular application on 171 run, right? Okay, so this is the failed one. Okay, so here this run was successful, and it gives me a complete information on that particular service. The score is 95. That means you can, the score is nothing but an intelligent threshold that you can set for this particular verification gate to take decisions. You can set this threshold as say 80. So any score below 80 will be treated as a failure. Any score above 980 will be treated as a success. Now, what is this scoring thing? It is again based on the ML based algorithms that we have written. That helps, that performs some kind of calculations and gets the score. If I start talking about the scoring and all, I'm sure it might take another couple of hours for me to complete that whole topic. But yeah, in the very beginning, I was telling this is world's very first platform, which is based on ML based, intelligent decision making capability, and this is that part of that ML, which we are using here. So it gives you all the required details that you want, why it was successful or why it was failed. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is how the software looks like. All the different features of insights, the continuous delivery, the continuous verification, the security governance, the compliance part of it using policy, and so on. So this is about the tool. Let me take a pause here and see if we have any questions. Brent, is this, are we late?
Yeah, actually, Vishal, we have a couple of questions that come in. If you're finishing up the presentation, we can kind of jump over to that aspect if that works for you.
Sure. I'm almost done, Brent, with the presentation. Okay. The demo is done. Yeah. So I think I can now take questions.
Sure. Well, thank you everybody for, Vishal having a great insight on how the tool works and how this can really help organizations. We've had a lot of people who have thanked us going through that process. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to launch another little poll. So if you want to jump back to the PowerPoint deck, if you're done with this, and then we'll get into some of the Q&As. So while you're doing that, I'm going to launch a quick poll for everybody.
Sure.
We will be sending the presentation slides out to everyone who's attended, along with other information that you might have. We'll run this poll for just a few more minutes and then get into the Q&A that we've had. So as we're waiting for this to finish, if anybody has any questions, feel free to add them to the chat box or the QA. We're watching both of those, and we will get to those shortly. So thank you everybody on answering that last poll question. So here are a couple of questions that we have so far. Is it possible to have access control, basically to restrict a team from editing or viewing critical pipelines? Oh, you're muted, Michelle.
I'm sorry. This is a very interesting question. I would like to thank the person who asked this. In fact, we do have a very detailed RBAC implemented into the application. RBAC, I mean role-based access control mechanisms. So what it does, it gives the ability for a person to restrict the access to a particular application or a data source or even the accounts, right? So that imagine if I have created an application and I want to make sure that that application is not being edited or modified by someone else, right? Or the pipeline, all the pipelines within that application are also secure, right? So no one should be able to edit it. Then I can restrict those access controls, access to those applications using the RBAC, and this is very much there in the product.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that answer. Another one that came through was this person has a lot of policy checks before deploying to their Kubernetes. Is it possible to define policies in ISD pipeline? I know you kind of touched that a little bit, but what kind of policies can be configured?
Well, that's another interesting question we have, right? So during the demo I was showing you, we have, I took a very simple example of a blackout window. During which we don't want to do the deployment. Policy can be anything. Say for example, the other day we had one of the curious customers who wanted to go with some kind of ISO certification, and he wanted to see if we can incorporate those policy checks, into the delivery process. That can be done. Say, for example, during the SDLC, right? Um, Let me talk, something from the developer perspective. During the deployment process, what happens with this containerization? Every single container we want to scan, we want to scan container images before we deploy those images into a target environment. Or we want to, run some kind of pen test, or we want to do some kind of dynamic application system testing, right? So all of them can be, policy driven. So you can add typical gates with this policy feature saying, hey, if the image scan is not successful, then halt the pipeline there, don't proceed. And you can automate all of that using policy checks.
Awesome. That seems extremely robust. So people can base it off of internal policies, and then like if their industry has rules and regulations for them to define as they're building solutions, correct?
Yep.
Awesome. You kind of touched just a little bit on, showing the history of pipelines and what's failed, what's passed, but how is there auditing or kind of report that shows what has failed, what has passed? You touched on it a little bit, but sort of like dashboards or things like that that ISD can provide.
Yeah, so I think this was the very last component which I was showing in the demo. If you remember, the audit screen, the audit trial screen. So there, it actually gives the complete health of your deployments, right? So it gives all the required details one could think of, right? It gives you what is the application that passed or failed, what are the number of successful pipelines. If it was failed, then why it failed, who ran the pipeline, what time it ran, what was the pipeline trying to do, which image it was trying to deploy, using what account, and into which target cluster or which target environment it was trying to deploy. So it gives you all the information that you can think of.
Awesome. Well, I think we have one other question. I'll answer that in a second. But I think that's all the questions we have right now. If anybody has any other questions, go ahead and ask them right now, so we can finish up the webinar and get to the most important question of all, is who is the winner of the Amazon gift card? So we kind of do this in a round robin. I wish I could show how we do it. There's apps that I put everybody's name into, and it automatically randomly picks a name. So the random winner for the gift card is actually Kira Gambiro. So congratulations. Somebody at OpsMX will be reaching out with you shortly to allow you to get that Amazon gift card. So if there's no more questions, I think we're going to finish up this session. Thanks again, Vishal, for a great presentation. We will get the deck out to everyone, along with information on how you can get our ISD version, an opportunity to download it and try it yourself. So thank you once again, everybody. And and somebody's asking another question. Thank you, everybody, once again, and let's have a great day, and talk to you all soon. Thanks, Vishal.
Thank you, Brent, and thank you all the participants. Good day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.